I never thought that one moment, one shift in timing, could change everything I thought I knew about myself, my loyalty, and the people I love. I grew up with Jessica. From elementary school to high school, to standing beside her as her maid of honor, we were inseparable. We shared secrets, dreams, heartbreaks, and every chapter of life together. When she met Ethan, I was the first one she called. I still remember her voice shaking as she said, "I think he's the one, Maddie." And he was. At least, that's what it always looked like from the outside. Ethan was everything you would hope for in a husband for your best friend. He was steady, kind, patient, and the kind of man who remembered the little things that made a woman feel special. From the very beginning, I respected him. I never saw him as anything more than Jessica's. That line was clear. Until the day that line blurred in a way that I never saw coming, and even now, I wish I could undo it. It all started on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Jessica had asked me to come over and help her with the final touches for their anniversary party. She wanted everything to be perfect. I didn't mind. She and Ethan had just bought this beautiful house on the edge of town, with big windows that let the light in and a backyard that seemed to stretch forever. It was the kind of home you could imagine raising children in, and Jessica had plans for all of it. When I arrived, she was already in the middle of a dozen things at once. Icing cupcakes, arranging flowers, and simultaneously on a call with her mom. It wasn't long before she asked me to go upstairs and grab a box of decorations from the guest room closet. It was such a simple request, one I wouldn't even remember, if not for what happened after. I climbed the stairs, still hearing her voice drifting up from the kitchen. The guest room smelled faintly like cedar and lavender, and as I knelt down to pull the box from the closet, I heard a door open behind me. I didn't think much of it until I heard a voice. "You scared me," I said, laughing a little as I turned and saw Ethan standing there. "I didn't mean to," he said, his own laugh soft, almost shy. "Jess said you were up here. I thought I'd grab the ladder while I had a chance." It was normal. Completely normal. Or at least that's what I told myself. I dragged the box out and brushed the dust off my hands. When I stood up, he was already walking toward the closet next to me. And that's when it happened, the moment that shifted everything. I don't know if it was the way the space was so small or the way I moved at the same time he did, but as I turned a step aside, he shifted in the exact same direction. His shoulder brushed mine first, then the side of his arm pressed lightly against my back as he reached above me. It wasn't inappropriate. It wasn't planned. It was just an accident, but the closeness of it, the sudden awareness of how near we were, froze me in place. I should have moved. I should have stepped aside. But I didn't. And then came that second, the one I'll never forget, when he adjusted his stance, moved just slightly, just enough for the smallest pressure of his presence to register like electricity through my entire body. I stopped breathing. I can't explain why. I can't explain why my heart suddenly raced or why every thought in my head blurred. All I know is that something in me, something I didn't even know existed, noticed him in that moment in a way I never had before. "Maddie," he said, his voice low, not in a way that was wrong, just in a way that felt so close. "Yeah," I whispered back. "You okay?" I nodded too fast.
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm fine." And then it was over. He grabbed the ladder, stepped back, and that accidental closeness disappeared like it had never happened. I carried the box downstairs, my hands trembling so hard I had to hold it tighter. The rest of the day was a blur. I laughed when I was supposed to, helped set up everything, and stayed until the candles burned low. But the entire time, I kept replaying that one brief moment over and over in my mind, confused and ashamed that it had even affected me at all. I told myself it was nothing. I convinced myself that it was just the rain, the closeness, a stupid spark of nerves that didn't mean anything. For days afterward, I buried it. I didn't tell Jessica. I didn't tell anyone. I thought I could just forget it. But forgetting wasn't as easy as I thought. The next few weeks, I noticed things I hadn't before. Every time I was around them, I was hyper-aware of Ethan's presence, of the way he carried himself, of how good he was to Jess. I hated myself for noticing. And every time his eyes met mine, I felt that same flicker of guilt deep in my stomach. Then came the evening that everything came to a head. Jessica had to fly out of town for work unexpectedly. It wasn't unusual, and she asked me if I could check on Ethan while she was gone, just to bring him a homemade dinner and keep him company for an hour so he wouldn't just work late and skip meals. It seemed harmless. That's what best friends do for each other. I went over that Thursday evening with a casserole dish in my hands and my heart pounding like it already knew something I didn't. He opened the door, smiling, and for a moment everything felt normal. We ate, we talked, and for the first time in weeks I relaxed. But as we cleaned up, I reached up to put a dish on the top shelf of the kitchen cabinet. And just like before, without thinking, he stepped closer to help. It happened again. That same accidental brush, that same subtle movement, and the same sharp awareness that made the air feel different. It was like the world held its breath. I froze, dish still in my hands, and felt that same rush of confusion and guilt. This time, though, I turned, ready to make a joke or step away. But I couldn't, because when I turned, his eyes were already on me, and for one long second, neither of us moved. "Maddie," he said again, softer this time. I swallowed hard. I should probably go. "You don't have to," he said. I did. I knew I did. But my feet felt glued to the floor. That moment, that closeness, felt like a tide pulling me in. And yet, even as everything inside me wanted to step closer, I forced myself to take a step back. "I can't," I whispered. I left without looking back, barely able to breathe until I was in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel. That night, I cried. Not because anything happened, but because I knew how close I had come to letting something happen. Because I knew how dangerous that moment was, and how much it scared me to realize that I wasn't as unshakable as I thought. The days after that were the hardest. I avoided their house. I avoided his calls, his texts, just simple ones asking if I was okay. I told Jessica I was busy. Eventually, I had to tell her the truth. Not the whole truth, but enough to keep myself from crossing that line. "Jess," I said one night over the phone, "I think I need a little space. Not from you. Just, I've been feeling overwhelmed, and I need to get my head straight." She didn't ask too many questions. She trusted me. That's what made it hurt the most. I loved her like a sister. And I knew, without a doubt, that no matter how tempting that moment had been, no matter how easily I could have fallen into it, I wouldn't. Because some lines can't be uncrossed. Even now, months later, I still think about that day in the kitchen, about how one small movement nearly changed everything. I think about the weight,